Since 1992, Genesis House has been helping real people heal from addiction on their private recovery campus in beautiful Palm Beach County, Florida. Their family-owned program is accredited by the Joint Commission and offers detox and dual diagnosis treatment in a comfortable and confidential setting. At Genesis House, they focus on treating the underlying causes of addiction. Their comprehensive approach includes psychiatric care, individual and small group therapy, trauma healing techniques, and holistic care including yoga, massage, and animal-assisted therapy. After treatment, their clients enjoy the lifelong support of a nationwide network of Genesis House alumni. Call Genesis House today at 1-800-737-0933 to speak with someone who understands. Visit them on the web at www.genesishouse.net. It's time to start your journey to a long and successful recovery.
Genesis House and the Friends in Recovery podcast are proud to bring you Answering the Call, the First Responders podcast. Join your hosts as they address the real issues of first responders' health and wellness, from physical and mental health to relationships and work-life balance. Answering the Call, the First Responders podcast is available on Facebook, Podbean, iTunes, and YouTube, as well as iHeartRadio, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Now, here are your friends in recovery answering the call.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Answering the Call, the First Responders podcast. This is the Podfather, Mike Miles, and I'm podcasting live from my man cave. Hope everybody's well. The most important thing I can say about being a police officer nowadays is there's some changing times going on out there. I just read an article yesterday. I live in Massachusetts, in Lynn, Lynn, Massachusetts. They are passing a new ordinance for the city that social workers, trained social workers, will be available to go on calls that require mental health guidance, mental health discussion, mental health participation. I am a social worker and I'm a street cop with 28 years experience on the street and 7 years experience as the social worker EAP for the police department. So I wear both hats. And I'm going to say right here, I don't think it's a great idea to have social workers arrive on a call either on their own or with a police officer. But here's the reason I'm against it. Number one, the safety of the social worker. As a cop, I went to more site visits, home visits with social workers, mostly females, to extract children from their homes, to talk to parents, to glean information. And the reason I went is most of the locations these social workers had to go to were kind of threatening as far as high crime areas. So it was known to anybody that worked for any of these social work departments, whether it was Department of Children, mental health, anything to do with the state, they would go to the police station first and request a police presence. And we always provided that. And I just think it's a dangerous job to begin with. Not all calls are dangerous. We know that. But heightened calls where people are agitated, where people are on medication or off medication, where people are intoxicated and on medication. Very, very arduous, very dangerous, very suspect to somebody either getting hurt or somebody getting arrested or both. And I just think there's enough onus on police officers now. And society's talking about defunding the cops. Society's talking about changing policing, which everybody changes over the years. There's always going to be change. When I became a cop in 1980, there was no such thing as community policing in writing. However, we had beat cops that walked neighborhoods. I did. That's what I did my first year on the job. And I walked a neighborhood that was sparsely populated. There was businesses, but I got to know people. And, you know, we always interacted with children. I knew cops that would take their pistol belt off, throw it in the trunk, and play 10 minutes of basketball with some kids. That's what we did. You know, I can remember going to department stores and buying baseballs, softballs, bats, gloves, basketballs, and footballs and pumps, air pumps, out of my own pocket to give to these kids that had nothing. They'd be sitting in a basketball court throwing rocks at each other. So I'd go buy couple basketballs and pump them up and off to the races. These kids were very grateful. They didn't forget it. That was community policing. Bill Clinton came into office, and I'm not talking politics here. I'm a conservative myself, but I thought Bill Clinton, from a police officer's point of view, did an outstanding job as a president. 8 years, and he was kind of like very supportive of community policing. Not only did he support it as a individual, he supported it with money. And most departments ended up having, extra police officers, which you can always use, and all kinds of equipment that we never had. I remember being able to buy my first Cavalier vest that was made by Safari Land, and it cost me almost $300. This is back in 1980, 81. It was a lot of money. I was making $200 a week. It was more than a week's salary. A week's salary today is about $1,600. So, that's a week's salary. But anyway, I bought my own vest. I had my own vest, and a couple of us did. Not everybody, maybe 2 or 3. Under the Clinton administration, we all got vests. We all got matching jackets that said Lowell Police, instead of buying our own from different stores, different police stores. Clinton really put the cherry on community policing. And I think any chief or administrator, mayor or city manager of that era would say that, yes, there was a lot of funds available. Now what we have is an administration that wants to stay in power. So they're agreeing with part of society that wants to defund the police, which I don't think it's half of this population. It might be close, but I don't think it is half. And I think it's a huge mistake. Getting back to the social workers, I went to 4 years of school to get my master's in social work, and it was a tough journey itself, in and of itself. I was like a fish out of water there. I was a white middle-aged cop with a bunch of young, very, very liberal, mostly women, some men. And most importantly, all the professors were, PhDs from the 60s. They hated cops. They hated me in the very beginning. I was actually asked why I was in this school. Can you imagine? Can you imagine asking an individual, starts a job, and then you get grilled? Why are you here? You couldn't do that today. They felt like they were doing me a favor, I think, by teaching me. But after 4 years, we all got along. There was a lot of hugging at my graduation from the professors that really didn't care for me in the beginning, because they realized that, I was a very empathetic, understanding, helpful person. And, that's what most cops are. They really are. Are there some assholes? Absolutely. Are there some thugs and punks? Yeah. Are there racist cops? I'm sure there are. But I got to tell you the truth. I never met one in my career, 35 years, not one. Believe it if you don't believe it. I don't really care. I don't lie. I did not meet one. I never saw an act of racism from a cop to an individual. Never. Not once. Have I heard the N-word? 1,000 times. Have I said it? 10,000 times. Have I heard the S word, the G word? Yeah, all of them. Done it all. Grew up in the city. Damn right. Spent 3 years in the Army. In a very tenuous time in history as well. 72 to 75. The busing was going on in Boston. The busing to integrate the schools. A lot of tension. I had 9 black drill sergeants, November 1972. I had 1 white. The 9 black, out of the 9 black, 5 of them despised me because I was from Boston. you were from Boston, and you were white, Irish, you were a racist. And I wasn't that. I grew up in a subpar neighborhood. I grew up in a neighborhood that was below medium income, and I had Puerto Rican neighbors, I had black neighbors, I had Mexican neighbors. I grew up in a very diverse neighborhood. Lowell is a melting pot. Lowell's always been a melting pot. Lowell's always had many cultures there. Right now, it's the second largest city. I'm sorry, the second largest city in the country. South Beach, California, and Lowell, Massachusetts, the top two cities for Southeast Asian families. Over 26,000 Southeast Asian families in Massachusetts, Lowell, Massachusetts. Very diverse city. So anyway, the cops I work with, they were not racist. Contrary to belief, every cop is racist. If you want to show, the George Floyd debacle over and over and over again, like the media did, and just keep painting the picture that this white cop was a racist pig, I'm sure he had his justification for what he did. I didn't agree with it. I've arrested people. I've knelt on people. I've held them down. I didn't do it for 9 minutes, 8 minutes. Once they were cuffed, and I'd sit them up, But we had a case in Lowell where a boy was handcuffed, sitting against the car. He was from out of city. There was an Asian cop and a white cop, had an Asian suspect stopped. He got up and ran. He ran right into the Merrimack River and he drowned. 8 o'clock at night, pitch black. They couldn't find him. He drowned. Those cops were in counseling for several years. And I know because I counseled one of them. Horrific experience. Now, if that was 2 white cops, maybe they would have said they were racist, so they threw them in the river or whatever. And the media does nothing but paint pictures that will sell newspapers, as far as I'm concerned. And you know what? They don't print the truth, especially when it comes. They might print some of the truth, but what they print is to sell newspapers and to keep the public going in a direction where they're going to keep buying the paper. And I think we have a horrible media in this country, and it's caused a lot of problems, and it's not going to get any better because we got 4 more years of the same old. Getting back to social workers and cops, I just think cops have enough to do. We go on enough calls. We do enough just on an 8-hour shift without worrying about meeting a social worker, protecting the social worker. You know what? If we can take somebody into custody and bring them to a facility where they can be dealt with and worked with in a proper way, by all means, that's what we do. But to put social workers in a cruiser or have them arrive on a scene, I think it's a mistake. Just my opinion. I'm trying to look at the good variables of that. And I guess if I was a family member of somebody that had mental health issues and I called the police, usually when somebody does call the police, it's because property's being destroyed, somebody's being threatened, somebody's being hurt. And as a result, the family members call the police. And I've seen situations where a father and mother call the police on their 19-year-old son home from college. He beats the father up. The father takes his shirt off. He's covered in blood. They call the police. The police get there Christmas Eve. Christmas Eve. What am I saying? It was Christmas Eve, the 24th of December. Police officer arrives on the scene, sees a man outside, good-sized man covered in blood. He thinks he's the bad guy because when the call went in, it was a man with a knife. Well, it wasn't. It was his son had cut him, threatened him, and had stabbed him or cut him. And the man was covered in blood. The cop gets there, draws his weapon, finally realizes that he's got the victim, not the suspect, puts his weapon away, goes into the house, and there's the suspect with a sharp little hatchet, meat hatchet, and a knife, a double-edged knife. And he comes at the cop. And the cop told him 3 times, drop the weapons, drop the weapons. He shot him and killed him. So here's a parent, 2 parents, mother and father, call the police to help their son who's out of control, who's hurt the father. They have no idea. He's never acted this way before. The cops get there, and the cop ends up killing his son. Sounds horrific. The media would have a field day with that today. Our media did not. They got the facts. They printed the facts. And that cop was only on the job less than 2 years when he did that. He's a deputy superintendent today. He got through that, and it wasn't easy. And the family got through it without a lawsuit. Because you know what? They were rational people. They understood. They're the ones that called. And this is what happens. You call the police, they arrive, and then other experiences very similar where people have called the police and the police arrive and their defendant, nephew, brother, father, uncle, whatever, approach the police with a knife or with a weapon, and they've been shot and killed. And then they're screaming into the media that we were wrong, we were wrong. Now, if there was a social worker with them, would it be different? I just think it'd be another witness to what just happened. So maybe that would be the positive side. Would these people that are out of control, would they calm down when they see someone you're trying to explain they're a social worker? Absolutely not. I know these heightened situations. I've seen enough of them. You know what? Maybe 1 out of 20 might listen and reason and calm down. But when somebody's out of control to the degree that their family members are calling the police on them, that's a person that's in a heightened, out of control mode that you're not going to calm down. I just think police officers have enough to do out there without taking people out with them and putting their lives in danger as well. And then trying to protect them and trying to protect themselves and trying to answer the call that they're on and figure out what they're going to do. And without the extra worry of having somebody with you that you have to protect because they're not armed, I just think it's more worry for a cop. And we have enough worries out there. I don't know if you agree with me, disagree. Feel free, 978-746-1717. Mike Miles, MSW at gmail.com. You can call me anytime you want. You can email me anytime you want. I don't have all the answers. These are just my opinions, Answering the Call, the podcast, Answering the Call, is an offspring from Friends in Recovery. Friends in Recovery podcast I've done for 3 years with Ed Chachio, Jersey Ed, the Podfather in Jersey Ed. We did this we started with that podcast, and we've helped a lot of people. We decided to do Answering the Call for my brother and sister police officers, firemen, correctional officers, EMS workers, and veterans. I'm also a veteran, 72 to 75, U.S. Army Military Police Corps. And we have helped a lot of people. We don't get half as many. We don't get a third of, a sixth of the amount of communications from Answering the Call as we do from Friends in Recovery. But Ed and I decided that he'd do he would do the Friends in Recovery podcast, and I'll do the Answering the Call. Because as it was, we were both putting a lot of time in trying to make this work every week. And we both work, we both have families, we both have a lot going on. Ed was moving, had some health issues. We just had a lot going on. Love doing the show. We're here to help. Like I said, we don't have all the answers. I'd love your response to what I'm talking about. I would love to hear your points of view. I don't think it's a good idea. However, it's going to be implemented in Lynn, Massachusetts. Only time will tell. I did talk about Chelmsford, Massachusetts. They have a phone number at the Chelmsford Police Department, and it's Towed Drunk to Drive, TOWED Drunk to Drive. And basically, what you can do if you're drunk, if you've been drinking, and you don't feel like you can drive, and you're in the town of Chelmsford, and you're going anywhere in the Middlesex County, which is several cities and towns, and you have your car, as long as it's registered, the police will come pick you up with a tow truck, tow your car to where you're going, to your destination, for the cost of zero, not a penny. As a matter of fact, when you call, the town of Chelmsford donates money to the Police Athletic League, which is another organization that's back in play, and I'm so happy to see it. Police Athletic League reaches out to kids in the community, boys and girls in the community, and helps them. Usually some of it's with boxing, with sports, dance, music. It's a great organization. But think of what I'm talking about here. You're drunk. You're sitting at some party. You're afraid to drive home, but you got to get home. You live in two towns away. You call the Chelmsford police. They pick you up, drive you home, and tow your car. Are you kidding me? That's not bending over backwards. I don't know what is, but that's what they offer. So as much as I think Massachusetts is a extremely way too liberal state, I will look at a town administration like Chelmsford and laud them and pat them on the back all day long. And I'll do the same with the town of Lynn, or the city of Lynn. They're trying something different. They're trying to improve what everybody's screaming about, defund the police. Well, I say fund the police. We don't get paid enough money to do what we do. We die 20 years younger than most people. Those are facts. They're not my facts, but they're facts. Average life expectancy 78. Most cops are dead before they're 60. Male cops, that is. Females too, but not as many. Die from heart problems, ulcers, suicide, high number of suicides. Again, the Podfather, Mike Miles, 978-746-1717. Email Mike Miles, msw@gmail.com. I think it's important that we do have change. Back in the 60s, the New York City Police Department started the NAP Commission. I'm sorry, the City of New York started the NAP Commission. It's an acronym, but I'm not sure exactly what it is, but it's NAP Commission. Google it. I know what it is. I don't know what the acronym stands for. I should, but I don't. And this study showed that cops were underpaid and undereducated. So they made a decision to pay to educate the cops and then give them more money, in lieu of cops taking kickbacks, bribes, and just not doing their jobs in a legal manner. Well, as a result of that, policing improved across not just the city of New York, the whole country. In Massachusetts, if you have a bachelor's degree, you get 20% more than the person next to you who doesn't have a bachelor's degree, which is 20% is a lot of money. So it's a big difference. Most cops are educated. I happen to be educated in law enforcement and in social work. I knew when I retired from the police department, I was going to have my own business, which I've had 9 years prior to retirement. But I've had a counseling business, and I also do alcohol drug counseling and mental health. And I just think it's important for me to speak up on this new process they're going to have in Lynn about social workers going on calls. So I want to hear your feedback on this. It's going to be interesting to see how this works out. I'd say a year from now, July 25th next year. I'd love to see how this program is working out. I want to see how many other cities and towns in Massachusetts have a similar program. Talk real quickly about fire departments. When I first came on the job, they shoveled out fire hydrants in the winter. They checked them in the spring, made sure they all worked. They went to river rescues. There was a rescue truck. But other than that, they just waited for fires, and talked to a lot of kids that were walking by firehouses when the doors were open. That's what I used to do when I was a kid. I'd go in, talk to the firemen. They were always very willing to talk to us, give you a cup of water if they had a water cooler, show you the equipment. Not once in my entire childhood in the city of Lowell did I ever get chastised or yelled at for walking into a fire station, because the doors were always open. Nowadays, firemen are well trained in first aid. They're on every call, every medical call. Their emergency response are there. Every overdose. They're first responders. And I think it's important. I'd like to know what they think of this, because lots of times they end up on calls where somebody who needs mental health counseling or some type of help, the family members have called the police and there's an injury. So rescue shows up. And then EMS shows up. Another profession that is without a doubt one of the toughest professions you're ever going to run into. I mean, these people give it their all and they save lives. That's what they're there for. And they deal with the gore, the blood, the guts of real bad motor vehicle accidents, tragedies, and I don't think they get paid enough. I think they should. I think they should make the same money cops and firemen make, because they're educated and they're lifesavers, basically. We take them for granted. And when these cities and towns, Ferguson, Missouri, Washington, D.C., Maryland, when these cities and towns have riots, and these thugs are breaking into stores and stealing things and looting, tipping over cars and punching people, beating up elderly and defenseless people, men and women, children, that's who gets called, EMS. You know what? No one's protecting them. They don't have a gun to protect themselves. They don't have a can of mace. They don't have any type of tools at all. They're there to help. They're not there to confront anyone. They're there to help people. But I guarantee you, every one of them has a story if they worked in any of those cities and towns. You got these mayors, mayor of Chicago, the mayor of Baltimore, Maryland, should be ashamed of themselves. Horrible, horrible people. Horrible people. They let half their cities burn down without trying to enforce the law. There's no need of that. It's horrible. And all the people that were injured. You don't see the media covering that. No, they'll just cover the sensationalism of the fires themselves. Well, anyway, that's my spiel for the day. Answering the call. We'll be back next week. One more time, 978-746-1717. That's my cell phone. Mike Miles, MikeMiles, M as in Mike, S as in Sam, W as in whiskey, Mike Miles, MSW@gmail.com. That's my email. All right. Stay safe, everyone.
That concludes this episode of Answering the Call, the First Responders Podcast. Thanks to Genesis House for supporting those on the path to recovery and keeping this valuable resource free for all our friends in recovery. Follow us on Facebook for past shows and updates, and enjoy free access to twice daily support meetings. Brought to you by Genesis House and the Friends in Recovery.